Here we go. We're in. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Helen. Helen. You lost your
Helen.
cherry. You lost your cherry.
Poor Helen. Yes.
That's the line from Goodfellas. Do you know Goodfellas? When the kid gets arrested and all the mafia guys see him as he comes out of prison,
Yes.
they go, "The kid lost his cherry."
Well, this is the second time. I did get permanently
So it's
suspended.
not quite your cherry.
Yeah, I did get permanently suspended a couple of years ago for saying men are more violent, but
Yes.
But that one got reinstated.
Yes.
On appeal.
Right.
So we'll see about this one. This one is quite an interesting one, I think.
Yeah.
Because it is. I am simply asking a question about male-born people with a penis. I mean, that is all I am saying.
Yeah, but the lumberjack spotted that they could get you banned for that, so they reported you. Sorry, the lumberjack. So we have to use code words for these absolute pricks because they
what was
try to get us taken down.
The person who reported me like a couple of days before seems to be completely stating an intention of trying to take me down.
Can I just quickly explain before you go on, Helen? Helen has been chucked off Twitter for asking the Staniland question. Some people may not know that. So she got banned yesterday or day before, something like that. Sorry, Helen, go ahead.
And people have been absolutely amazing today, retweeting the hashtag. It's been going on all day, and I want to thank everyone for that. It's been such a lovely show of support. However, what I think is really interesting is that the person who's reported me has tweeted about it and has said, "I reported Helen yesterday. I actually report much less than I should, but enough's enough. I have never been dogpiled by so many abusive, toxic men in all my time on here." So what's happening here is that, again, a feminist or woman who wants safe spaces for women and girls is being blamed for male violence. I mean, there's no question here. There's no pretense. I've never been dogpiled by so many abusive, toxic men. Not women, not me.
Also, men. it's that brilliant thing of a man complaining about men dogpiling him when it's the man who's being abusive to a woman by getting her taken.
But also, I went back and checked, and the beginning of the thread was, in fact, this person subtweeting me, but using my name. And something from one of your blogs, but clearly it was about me. So that was the start of it, and then the conversation went on, and so this person was engaged throughout. At no point did this person say, "Oh, please stop tweeting at me." Nothing like that. Just but also condescension and rudeness and quote tweeting. So I simply continued to ask the question. So I think this is really interesting. Now I have obviously appealed because. Because obviously why, and we'll see what Twitter say about this, because
I don't know.
There's a lumberjack in the chat right now, by the way.
Oh, really? Is there? Which one?
Yeah,
I think that's going to happen a lot.
I mean, if you're going to complain, then don't follow us around, buddy.
Yeah.
Fuck off, would you?
Okay, Helen, when it happened, first of all, I don't think Twitter are going to engage with you. I don't think they do that. But the other thing I just wanted to quickly say is, when you got chucked off, I mean, I think you'll remember, Helen, I was so delighted. Because I've never seen a better example of Twitter being at the moment an MRA communications platform, because you were asking a perfectly legitimate question that's to do with women's safety, and they banned you for it. It's beautiful. And I noticed on Mumsnet there's a thread now that's something like 600 plus messages long. So
that's
it's
nice. I'll have to have a look. Yes, because the other thing I think that's worth pointing out here is that somebody was trying to dox me. Somebody was, in fact, doxing me. Was tweeting people like this person, and the comedian chap was tweeting them with my
failed comedian. Let's be accurate.
With my full name and postcode, and saying and where they think that I worked, although they got that one wrong. And
don't tell them that.
We're saying to people to Google me. I complained to Twitter because this was, and I saw somebody say to them, "Don't do this," and they replied saying, "All other avenues of trying to stop her have been
exhausted.
Have been exhausted." So it was a definite, purposeful attempt to put me in danger. And the same thing goes with the chap who put my name and a tweet together with some violent tweets without the name and any identifying.
Oh, that was the failed comedian from Ireland, yes.
And this one was sent out, and it was made to very purposefully look as if I had said those things. And indeed, people were replying and quoting him, saying, "Oh, look at this awful, dreadful woman." And from that, I did, in fact, get people inciting violence. Somebody saying, about me. And Twitter did not take any of those down. I complained about all of those, yes, and they said no violation. So I do think that is quite interesting in comparison.
Well, I'll tell you what. Sorry, Helen, were you going to go on to something else? Well, I think that might be a good place to bring in our guests because we have with us two people who know a lot about the kind of tech pro culture in Silicon Valley and what's happening over there at the moment. So if you don't mind, I'll bring them in now so they're not waiting around, and we can continue this with them. Very, very, very happy to have on the show MK Fain and Sasha White. Hello, how are you? It's lovely to see you.
Hey, you too. Thanks so much for having us.
Hey, good to be here.
Now, I'm not sure how much you guys know about the UK gender critical scene. Do you pay much attention to it?
Yeah, definitely.
It's hard not to.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are awfully loud. It's really annoying. But Helen, I just thought I don't know about what you thought, but when I saw that, Helen's just made her Twitter account all about asking this question, because as you know, it's a very exposing question. The people who answer it, because when they can't answer no to the question, do you believe what was it? I'm so sorry, Helen, I've heard it a million times and I can't remember it offhand. Do you believe that male-born, go on, Helen, come on.
Do we believe that male-born people with a penis should have the right to undress in a changing room, in a communal changing room where women and girls are undressing?
So they banned her for that question, and for me, that shows up more than any other thing that's happened recently. The men's rights aspect of this ideology. Would you largely agree with that?
Yeah.
Let's
absolutely.
go to Sasha. Yes.
Yes, I think so. I mean, I saw someone say on Twitter about Helen that they banned you because your question worked and because it made people peak trance.
Yeah. I always think, I think, and in fact, I saw a nice thread from someone who said, they said something like, "I will always believe that trans women are women. Nothing will change my mind on that." But they said, but then I looked at what they were saying about Helen, and I noticed that she it was basically lies. They were just misrepresenting.
Yes, I saw that. I have to say that was quite a nice thread. And what they said was, I checked her thread, and yes, she asked the question a number of times, but always the word penis was in that context. And that she wasn't asking for genital inspections or wasn't a sexual deviant like I've been led to believe.
Yes.
which was quite interesting. And then she also went on to say, I fully believe that trans women are women, but I would have to answer this question with a no.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of weird. Unfortunately, that person is going to have to reach a point where they realize that it's that statement that's the problem.
Yeah. I mean, how did the entire world... I mean, we just all collectively forgot what trans is. And what it is simply a palliative treatment for a mental health condition. These are people who have dysphoria, who are in distress, and we're giving them sex changes and letting them adopt a social role as members of the opposite sex to alleviate their distress. That's all it ever was. But everybody thinks that, to improve their well-being, instead of like giving them housing, making sure they can't be kicked out of their houses, making people understand that this is a condition and we should be polite about it. It's to take it more and more literally, right? The way to improve trans people's lives is to pretend that sex just means nothing. And we should just take their condition more and more literally, to the point where we're saying babies have it now. And everybody's collectively just forgotten that this was all just a middle-class courtesy,
Yeah.
And then it starts with one lie that they literally are women. And then once you have that one lie, everything just builds from there. You just have to keep adding more and more lies until you're living in an entire world that is just complete make-believe, and lumberjacks are marching into women's changing rooms with their dicks out,
Let me ask a question. One thing I've noticed about you and MK, I mean, I'm old. I'm very old, so everyone looks young to me. But Sasha and MK, you're quite young, and I'm just wondering. You probably grew up in the culture more that accepted TWAW. How were you peaked trans yourself, MK? First of all.
Yeah, so for me, it was actually Rachel Dolezal, because my partner and I were having, for those who don't know, Rachel Dolezal is an American woman who basically identified as Black, despite definitely being white. And she tanned her skin, put on a perm, dyed her blonde hair to dark, and went and got a job at the NAACP. And basically cosplayed as a Black woman for many years and got jobs doing that. And so my partner was actually saying to me in a very open-minded way, so why can't there be transracial if there is transgender? I don't really see the difference. And him asking that is what sent me down this rabbit hole of trying to figure out why we shouldn't accept Rachel Dolezal if we accepted trans women. And that just opened up the whole world for me.
Brilliant. And Sasha, what was your journey? Use that American expression.
Yeah. The similarity with MK's is that I was also trying to educate myself on the topic. And, I had just started university at a very liberal school. And I was watching the lectures and interviews of Laverne Cox and Janet Mock. And I was pretty on board at first. I wanted to support because I already supported the LGBT community. So I wanted to figure out how I could also be, supportive of the T. And then it was just in observing Laverne Cox, who makes statements like misgendering is violence, observing Laverne's appearance and the tons of makeup, the bolt-on tits, the stilettos, the mini dresses. And I realized that these were all the accoutrements of womanhood that sometimes men fantasize about women having, but they don't make a woman. And then it just clicked for me and I could never unsee it.
And were you guys kind of, let's say, lonely amongst your kind of contemporaries?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was completely alone in the group that I was in. I was living in sort of a vegan anarchist commune
at
the time. So you can imagine what that was like. And when my partner and I ended up coming forward with our beliefs that we were gender critical, we ended up being kicked out of that house, kicked out of the organizations that we had founded, kicked out of our entire social community. And I ended up losing my job over this. And, eventually ended up moving across the country because we no longer felt safe for a variety of reasons where we were, but that was one of those reasons.
And Sasha?
That's astonishing.
I know, it's terrible, but it's I have to just move on because it's just, we all know.
It's just so normal now.
It's so normal. It's so normal. Sasha, obviously you had a very highly publicized, people may not be up to speed with that. Could you briefly take us through what happened to you?
Sure. So I, over the summer, was hired a year out of college in my first career job, which I thought was very promising for me, to be a literary agent. And on the side, I had a hobby of being gender critical. And I had a Twitter account under my name, but it was personal. It wasn't affiliated with my job. But a month into the job, someone made a call out tweet and tagged my agency, myself, and said, this vile transphobe is spewing filth and turf rhetoric, and everyone in the industry should stay away from her. So less than 2 hours after that tweet was sent, I was fired on a Sunday night. And it was devastating, but surprisingly and amazingly, literally thousands of people came to my support, and mostly in the UK, some Americans. And that's what happened.
I think the thing with, I mean, this is my theory about America. I think for the last 4 years, you guys have kind of had your hands full. And I think that, I mean, we were talking a little bit about the, with Leith from Wolf, we were talking a little bit about, to her about the Biden executive order, which seems to be bad news for women, but might not be. I know there's a few debates, but maybe we'll go into that later. But it's, I always try and find to the light in all this stuff, and it seems to me that just like that woman Helen who wrote about you, who realized that she was being manipulated and lied to, it seems to me that we are entering into a phase now of this ideology where there's going to be a lot of sunlight on it, and what happened to you, Sasha, what happened to you, MK, and you, Helen, is stuff that happened to people who there was just no spotlight on them, you know, until you know you were cancelled. So I just feel like we might be entering into a new stage, because I think Americans are just like everyone else, and as soon as they realize the implications, they're going to go, wait a second, this is insane. Like, I remember that feeling I had when I realized people meant TWAW literally. I couldn't believe it. And I think that many people are going to have that insight.
Yeah, I think right now there are some people who think this is all just a polite metaphor, and some people who think it's actual literal, and there's just a whole bunch of people who are all agreeing with it but not knowing why they're doing it, and not even agreeing with each other. And now we're going to have to really air this all out, bring it all out in the open, and say which of you are the true believers, which of you are just playing along because you think it's polite, you know, which of you don't agree and are just scared to lose your jobs. Let's just get it all out there, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that Biden's executive order is really going to force that conversation, because suddenly normal mainstream Americans, people who are not like existing on the fringes of culture wars, debating these things on Twitter, are going to actually start to see what it means when we say trans women are women, when their daughters are losing sports scholarships, when there are men in the changing rooms with their daughters and they feel scared. I mean, all of these things are starting to happen now to mainstream everyday soccer moms Americans who would not otherwise be engaged in this debate. And I think that's going to be the tipping point here. Is unfortunately, it's going to have to get a little bit worse before people start to wake up and be really affected by it, to the point where they start to speak up. But thanks to Biden, that's happening now.
Yes, that's what I was hoping. That's what I was hoping. Like, I think also, unfortunately, some kind of there's been some preparatory work made with the word Karen. Calling people Karens seems to be a way of even before it happens, dismissing what women say. So I don't know how many men are watching this, but I really think it's very, very important for men to realize that it's a much more dangerous debate for women to enter into, and they need to be there to stand up for women and to look after them and protect them. In that sense, I'm only talking about in the sense that they don't get attacked to the same extent. They don't have to move across the fucking country because they're frightened for their lives. You know,
it's true, and it's the same with this whole Twitter thing, isn't it? It affects women so much more. So what's basically happening is that men are still there airing their political views, whereas women airing their political views, and it is definitely a political view. Biden has now brought it front and center, right up there. This is political. This is what I'm doing, this executive order, and women should be allowed to say what the effects are on them. And Twitter has said, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Which is so, I mean, it's completely wrong. This is, you know, it's silencing women's political speech specifically because they are women.
Yeah, absolutely. MK, can I ask, I keep thinking about this number, and I'm always interested. Maybe you know better than me about this, but do you know what I know that the percentage of trans-identified people working in places like Twitter, I know it far outweighs the percentage of trans-identified people in actual real life. But do you know anything more about that? Do you know anything about those figures? Are they?
I don't have any specific stats on that, but I definitely wouldn't be surprised, because just anecdotally, I think we see time and time again that these communities that are hyper online tend to be where this social contagion spreads. So I can't say anything for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised.
One of the things that, sorry, I'm aware I'm talking a lot, but one of the things that always kills me is the fact that Amy Challoner, who was on the Stonewall board. Stonewall is the UK LGBT rights charity. But Amy Challoner was right at the center of Stonewall during the time that they were introducing concepts like self-ID. And then they went over to America, and her pedophile short story writing boyfriend are now central figures in Reddit. And Amy Challoner actually said in an interview that they were responsible for getting the gender critical groups banned from Reddit. So it seems to me that this is, I actually wrote to Charles Arthur about this from The Guardian, knowing he would never cover it. He's the tech reporter there. I'm sorry, Charles, but I have to talk about this. But you should. Yeah, I know, it's outrageous.
Why is it not being covered? This is a major deal for women, half the population.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, half the population are now being forced to, as soon as I saw that thing that Twitter said that you would be banned if you reduced people to their genitals, I immediately wrote to Jane Clare Jones and said, this is it. There's going to be a cull, of women talking about their rights. And it's turned out to be true, Anyway, no question. So there's nothing for our guests to talk about. It's my usual charming style. Let me ask a question. Let me ask an actual question. You say that you got a lot of support when you came out as gender critical and when you were fired and so on, Sasha. And you and MK are now doing a wonderful new kind of resource for young women who are thinking about getting into the gender debate. Could you tell us a little bit about that and what your plans are?
I'm so sorry because my audio cut out just the very last part of your question.
I'm just wondering what your plans are with this new. Could you just tell us a little bit about this idea that you set up for women who are young women who are trying to get into this debate?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really excited about it. Me and MK have embarked on this new project. It's twofold, sort of almost threefold. We have a weekly webcast that we do on YouTube, and MK writes a column that accompanies it. So each week we answer a question that has to do with how, as young women or as young people, it's not just for women, we can navigate this insane maze of gender ideology, and especially when you're being forced to tailor your own thoughts to sort of a religious belief.
Yes.
And then the third element of it is on my site, plebityorg, I'm inviting young people to write in anonymously. It's like a forum because it was inspired when I got this email from a 17-year-old closeted lesbian who's gender critical. She's scared of being canceled, but she wanted me to tell her story. So we are just trying to break open this conversation for the people our age.
One thing that Stella O'Malley once told me was that when the Stasi came down in East Germany, one of the things that was preventing them from being toppled was because everyone thought everyone else supported them.
Yeah.
And I think we've a similar situation here.
Yeah,
and parents were afraid that their kids would report them.
Sorry, Sasha?
And parents were afraid that their kids would report them.
I mean, my God, how close is that to what's going on? That's extraordinary. Did you see that there was a report recently from Scotland where they found out that something like 20 parents had been reported to social workers for not waving pom-poms because their kids wanted double mastectomies and to take testosterone? Yeah. It's just extraordinary. MK, how do you see the new project unfolding? What are your hopes for it?
Yeah, so it's called Identity Crisis, by the way, and you can find it on YouTube. It's on Plebity, which is Sasha's organization's channel, and on 4w.pub, which is my website where the column is run. And it's a really cool collaboration, I think, bringing our two mediums together. Sasha has this like really great eye for good video content, and then I've been running 4w as sort of a feminist alternative to Medium after getting banned from Medium. And so now we have women who are, you know, canceled on various platforms able to write there. So it's been really
right.
That's
yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah.
So it's 4w.pub, PUB.
Okay,
Brilliant.
we'll put a link to that in the thing below. Yeah, no, I was thinking that's going to be a very busy thing for you because so many women have been chucked
Because
off.
Medium has just, because Medium just do ban women, don't they? Again.
Yes. I was banned after I posted an interview with Ariel Scarcella, who's a lesbian YouTuber who recently went like full gender critical and kind of like switched that. She also kind of like went right wing and like really just kind of disavowed the left. But I posted an interview with her, and that was what got me banned from Medium. And it's crazy because Medium is actually one of the few places on the internet where an amateur writer can actually make a decent income. Like I was making, you know, $1,000 a month on Medium at my peak. And that's with, you know, no connections in the industry. You don't need anyone willing to publish you. You can just do it and build your own audience. So getting kicked off of there means that amateur writers, people who don't have an audience with some of these big publications that will give gender critical voices a space, they don't have a place for their writing anymore. And so our patrons on 4W support our writers, which is really amazing because we're not able to fill the whole gap like Medium could, but we're actually able to fill in some of that gap of income that women are losing when they're kicked off of these platforms, which is something that's really important to me as well.
What a brilliant initiative. That's absolutely fantastic. I'm really glad that we can help in advertising it a little bit here as well.
Yeah. And the other thing is that the great aspect to it is that you not only get women who've been kicked off, but you get very, 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 very smart women who've been kicked off. Because one of the things we've noticed is that once a GC account goes over about 3,000 followers, they become a target. And they become a target for reporting, and people like the lumberjack and the failed comedian and the Scottish actor, you know, they anyone who's got an audience, they immediately go for them, you know. So the reason they get audiences is because they're smart people. They're very, very smart. They're very funny. You know, they have great insights, and you know, it's almost a good thing that this is happening, because you know, you can start a kind of, I don't know, media company by just finding brilliant people who can't get published anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do hope that women who are getting kicked off Twitter, Helen, yourself included, are coming over to Spinster and the Fediverse. So you don't have to actually lose your voice and lose an audience when you do get kicked off of these platforms, because there are alternative platforms that are popping up. And yes, they don't have the same reach and the same audience as Twitter, but what we see a lot is that you're reaching a different audience. And on Spinster, for example, we have a really large membership of women who are very passionate. And so they'll take what you say and bring it back to the larger audience as well, to help like create that feedback loop, so that people who are erased from mainstream social media don't end up actually being erased from the social consciousness.
Yeah.
And I think it's really funny how the cancellation really works against the people who cancel, because look at what they've created now in me and MK. We're fighting this now with everything we've got, whereas before we spent our time in jobs separate from this, all our time, all our energy and all our time. So it's like a whack-a-mole, like each time they cancel someone, we just come back stronger.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's
Gosh,
brilliant.
It's very inspiring to hear you two with such enthusiasm and confidence to take this on. Me, I just feel like it's a weight that haunts me and upsets me. And it just feels very refreshing to see you two just so boldly saying, yeah, we're going to fight this, you know, and we're going to win. It just, yeah.
Well, you know, I went through the period where it really got me down. Like when I was first fired and I didn't have any friends left in the city I lived in, it really did wear on me. You know, I spent a lot of time just playing video games for a couple weeks because I was just so depressed. And, actually creating Spinster with my partner, he was like, you need to do something. You're just down. Like, why don't you channel all of this into something productive? And so he pushed me to create Spinster in that moment to give me something to like bring back that fire and that life. And when you're able to connect with others on these issues, you don't have to just sit and stew in the negativity all the time, because you can feel like you're actually channeling all of that rage, all of that fear, all of that anger into something actually productive. And honestly, I feel great now. Like I'm like the happiest in my life I've been in a long time. Like, I'm totally canceled. I don't have any friends out in the real world. All my friends are online now, but like I'm doing great. Like, I thank the people who did this to me, because honestly, I love my life now. So thank you to all of you.
Oh, that's so brilliant. What a wonderful, wonderful thing to hear. That's just made me so happy.
Well, something I heard from another person, they said when their friends found out they were gender critical and ejected them from the group, someone said, "Welcome to the better friends stage of your life." And,
yes.
And I was saying to Helen last night that all the people I've met in this, I consider my Foxhole friends. They're people I would go to war with, because I know they're brave, I know they're clever, you all just inspire the hell out of me, and I feel, even though it's dark and it's frightening and it's it's so crazy that we've come this far. I mean, I've never seen such an attack on women's rights. It's extraordinary, but at least it's something to fight. You know what I mean? I always wanted to be in a fight when you're fighting something that's truly wrong and evil and pernicious, like McCarthyism or the Cultural Revolution or the fucking killing fields. It's just great to be involved on. It's great to be one of the good guys. I feel like I'm one of the good guys. I've never, I thought I was one of the good guys before, but I kind of think now that I was actually kind of one of the fucking counselors and one of the witch finders, a little bit, maybe a lot. And having being on this side of it makes me realize now. I mean, I've had several things, like my political beliefs, which were always very, very left wing. Once I saw how misogynistic the left were, people like Owen Jones with his ridiculous 38 tweet thread, fucking making invisible the slagging off the people who were actually around during Section 28, during the AIDS epidemic, and saved people's lives and saved and sat with people while they were dying. And Owen Jones is calling them bigots and transphobes. Fucking prick. Anyway, sorry.
I saw Suzanne Moore had written a nice little piece about that. That's where.
And I've had a few lesbians writing and saying and talking and remembering what they went through and what they did and how they sat with people who were dying and bought makeup to cover up the scars and so on. And they're very. I mean, I get
the responses. Oh, these people shouldn't be allowed to like this TV program.
Yeah.
I mean, for crying out loud, it's just pathetic, isn't it? It's pathetic.
It really is. But anyway, let's not go down that road. It's got dark there. I didn't want to say. So I mean, we are in an interesting situation now globally, in that a lot of people compare. I remember I was a big kind of techno utopian, and I really thought that all these tools would be great. And my mistake was thinking that the people at Twitter were actually just brilliant people who had all our best interests at heart. And it's been a bit of a crash. How do we fix tech so that it doesn't have this kind of, one could say, a kind of negative human element of just basically silencing people they don't like? How can we fix that?
So it's There's a really long answer to that, but the short answer is that I think we need to put the power back in the hands of the people. So we cannot have technology that is controlled by a single corporation, that is centralized, that where one corporation has the ability to make a decision like, banning the leader of a country that can, just wipe them off the internet, essentially. So rather than having a single corporation that has power, we need solutions that are decentralized, where everyone individual has the ability to make the choice about who they want to engage with and who they want to block or silence. But when that happens on an individual level, like if I'm tired of you, Graham, then I could just block you. But that's not censorship. That removes your ability to communicate with the rest of the world. I'm just saying you can't communicate with me. And the more we can create individual decentralized systems, and this is, for Twitter, like the Fediverse is a great example of this, but things like email are another example. Like email is actually pretty hard to kick someone off of, because you could just go make another email account somewhere else. So we need to make the whole internet like that, where you can't just get kicked off YouTube, because you could go create your video account somewhere else and people can still watch and listen to you.
And is that possible?
Yes, it totally is. The technology is there right now for almost all of this. The hardest thing is the social aspect. It's a little bit kind of like the tragedy of the commons, but like kind of inverse, where like because everyone is already on the big ones, it's hard to get people to move to these new alternatives. But the more the big ones piss people off, the more we see people join the alternatives. What's a shame is that like in recent news, for example, a lot of people have been joining other centralized systems. Like when Trump got banned, we saw a lot of people joining Gab and Parler, which are just other centralized proprietary, well, Gab isn't proprietary, but Parler is systems that don't actually solve the problem, because they replicate the same exact pattern of a single centralized authority that makes decisions. So what we need to do is just continue getting people pissed off at the mainstream, and then educate them that don't just go to another corporation. You need to take back the power. And I think that there are people who are working on making this more accessible to the masses, and we're going to be seeing some of that coming out soon.
Great. And
I wonder if there's a role for sort of anti-monopoly legislation too, because sometimes I wonder we have to force these monopolies to break up, because I don't know if like people are going to just opt to do it on their own. So I wonder if there's an element of that too, where we really have to hold Google and Twitter and Facebook to account, and well, we'll have to take some of their power away.
I'm hoping Joanna Cherry, who is a Scottish minister over here for the SNP, she complained about Sarah Fillmore being thrown off, and I'm hoping she picks up Helen Staniland's case. And I've also sent her I did a blog post of women who've been kicked off Twitter and the reason they've been kicked off Twitter. And the reasons are extraordinary. They're a Twitter feed that used to try and fight back against the misunderstanding around intersex people, intersex facts, was thrown off Twitter because in a 150 tweet long reply thread, they said, "Okay, dude," or something like that. There were like hundreds of people listed in the replies, and she said, "Okay, dude," and one of those people said, "Oh, she's calling me a dude, so I'm gonna report them for misgendering," and they were thrown off Twitter. And
this is a palliative treatment, not a literal magical transmutation.
Yeah. Well, that's the religious aspect.
Plus, we call everybody dude. I'm in California.
I know, yeah. It's like you can't. I'm afraid I don't want to say it, but you can also not ban the C word, because then all of Scotland will disappear off the internet.
It was a big fight in the early days of Spinster.
Oh yes, no, I think I remember that. I think I saw that.
All the Scottish women were real mad.
Yeah, it's like, no, but you won't. They won't be able to say anything.
Yeah.
There was something else I was going to ask there. Oh shoot, what was it? If anyone else has something pop in, I did have something in my head, but it's jumped out.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so I think that we were kind of talking earlier about some of the ways that people like face these material consequences for like getting canceled and like all the pushback that happens. Sasha, I think that you should tell us a little bit about an idea that you have to solve this problem.
Yes, the Free Speech Fund. I think that's what MK is getting. Giving
It
me an
is. Good job.
opportunity to plug. Thank you. So, my dad and I have started this organization called plebityorg, and this has consumed our lives in a large way since I was fired, and we decided to create a free speech fund, which raises money to give emergency grants to people who are in this type of situation. And we've just started, and we gave our first grant to Marguerite Stern. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Marguerite Stern. She's a French feminist.
Yeah, I know the name somehow.
Yeah, she's really fierce. She's a warrior for this cause and also for fighting against femicide and things like that. She's out in the streets. She's like a full-time activist. And she's been absolutely hounded in such an extreme way by the TRAs, by the French TRAs. She was also living with other activists, and she was forced to move, and she lost 2 jobs over her activism, as she, explains it. And she's just in a down and out situation. And so we got in touch with her, and I interviewed her on my channel, and we raised money for her, and we were able to give her $1,300 as this emergency fund, and also to show other people that we have this whole community. People do want to support. And so it's supposed to be not only helping concretely that one person, but also to show everybody that you can speak, have a little courage, because we will have your back.
Yes, I think
that's a brilliant initiative.
It is amazing.
That is, I think you're right. That second part, that it does mean that people maybe think, okay, maybe I shouldn't be quite as frightened as I would have been, if you really want to do something about it, because there will be, and of course there are more and more people. I mean, I've been astounded today I've been looking on Twitter, and the standing line question has just been going on and on all day. Like every minute or so, somebody's been tweeting it out. What a brilliant show of support! Like absolutely second to none. These people have my back. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think
yeah,
it's time. It's time.
Up. Like it was Abigail Schreier did another interview on, I think it was trigonometry the other day. And she was saying, she gets all these emails from doctors saying, oh gosh, I'm really nervous. I don't know what to do. I can't say anything, but I support you. And she would thank them. And now she's saying, I'm done with that. Now she's responding to these doctors and saying, you know what? You're a doctor. You actually have an obligation to speak up. Yeah, I'm tired of it. Yeah. It's time to speak up. It's time, Yeah, I know it's not easy. Some people there's a lot of risk, but there's a lot of support too. And the support has grown to the point where we really have to start speaking up and speaking out, because it's the only way this is ever going to end, is that people speak up. There are some people who are like the first people. It's in their nature to be the first, the upstanders, I think is what Stella O'Malley calls them. Some people are like, they'll stand up right away when they see something's bad. Some people will wait till 1 or 2 people. Some people will wait till many more. No one's ever going to stand up if there's no first stander, right? So we have to start standing up. Yeah.
Derek Jensen put it a different way. Derek Jensen said that the first person through the door is the one that gets shot. But the way you help is by another person coming through the door really quickly, and then a third, and then a fourth, and then a fifth, and a sixth, so that there are so many people in the room that the shooter is, I don't know. He's
overwhelmed. Take him down.
Yeah, he's over. They take it. He's put in a headlock and shoved through a window. Sasha, sorry, you were going to say something there.
I was just, I saw that live too, Artie, and when Schreier said that, and it was so powerful, because she said they email her and say, oh, I don't want to speak up, and so I just go along with it. And then she would always email them back and just say thanks, like you said. But then she started saying, no, you have an obligation to speak up. You have an obligation to speak up against this harm that's happening to your patients. And that was intense to hear.
I think that might be why one aspect of being cancelled that makes it, doubly painful and lonely is that there's a lot of people who probably feel that way, but know they're being cowardly if they say it, and they just don't want to talk to you. They don't want to have the conversation. I mean, like I almost well, I don't know, but I almost admire the people who actually rang me up to tell me to stop speaking about it. These are celebrities, you know, because at least they engaged. You know, they're still despicable cowards, but at least they engaged. You know,
the reckoning is going to be so big. I mean, everything. Eventually, Twitter is going to have to acknowledge that trans was just a palliative treatment and that sex is actually real. And then there's going to have to be a huge reckoning. Medium is going to have to make public statements and say, gosh, we screwed up. And then we're going to have to face all of our friends and coworkers and be like, look, it's just a palliative treatment for a mental health condition, you know?
Maybe I'm too cynical, but I think it's going to be like just one day they just kind of memory hole the whole thing. Like, I don't think there's going to be apologies. I don't think those of us who stood up and lost things are going to be vindicated. I think it's going to be like, they're just going to essentially like suddenly just shut up on this issue. And then the whole thing is just going to be completely like rehypnol, just like gone from public consciousness. And then we're going to look back and be like, other people are going to be, that there weren't men who said they were women. Like that doesn't sound real.
The Tokyo Olympics never happened.
Yeah, and then it's going to be like 30 years from now, there's going to be podcasts that are like looking back, like it's like, now what was it that caused this mass panic about transgenderism? Like they are like, you know, right now there's these podcasts that are like the satanic panic, like in the 80s, how did this happen? Could this happen today? It's like,
and they're going to be looking back and they're going to say things like, why was there a sudden rise in female pedophiles from the year 2015 to 2019? Why did children become extremely attractive during that time? You know, it's like, you know what I mean? And it's got because it was men. It was men. It was men. You know.
And honestly, people will pretend that they didn't support it. It'll just be it will just be quiet. They'll be like, oh yeah, no, I knew really, but I didn't. You know, I didn't really want to say too much.
But there is a serious thing about that, though. Like, will Twitter give Megan Murphy her account back? Will they give people their Medium account back? Will they restore all the like I was 10 years on Twitter, and that's like 10 years of content that just got disappeared. Luckily, I still have I don't know what to do with it, but I have all my tweets. I downloaded them. Someone warned me just before I got kicked off, download all your tweets, so I did.
I did the same.
I don't know what. Did you? Good girl. That's great.
I saw that people were just like gunning for me constantly. So I thought, well, it is just going to be a matter of time, because you know there's just nothing you can do with that sort of onslaught, because you know the Twitter mods, they're just people, right? And some, you know, a lot of them are going to be like, no, that's not hateful. No, that's not hateful. And one day one of them's going to be like, oh yeah, no, that's fine. We'll get rid of that account. So I downloaded all of my content because I think it'll be quite useful if I need to at some point prove that my account was not at all inciting violence or hateful.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I've got all the tweets.
I just wanted, because I did a thing once where I pretended that I was live tweeting the running of the bulls in Pamplona, and it's one of the funniest things I ever wrote, and I can't bloody find it. It's really annoying. It's just loads of tweets of me going, the bulls are, and just cutting it off. And that was it. That was the joke. Oh my God, it was stuff like that. Can I ask, have you, Sasha, maybe I could ask you this. Have you noticed since Trump has gone, have you noticed what I was talking about earlier? And have you noticed people going, wait a sec, what are people saying? Have you noticed more of a curiosity about this subject, or have you seen this from your vantage point?
I can't say I've seen it yet in real life, but it's so soon. I do think it will happen. I'm just waiting for it to happen, because I know, like, in my community, it's very liberal and very progressive, but what are they going to say? The coaches, I'm thinking of my old coaches, my old teachers. What are they going to say when they're not going to get funding unless they open up the girls' team to boys? You know, so it's going to come to a head soon. I know it is, and I'm just wondering what's going to happen.
I wonder if it's worth being proactive and writing to various people about, you know, this is going to happen. You're going to have to look out for that. Yeah.
I think it is worth doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it. I'm too tired.
It will open it up. You know, because he's explicitly talked about sports, you know, explicitly. And so this is going to happen, and it's going to happen quite soon. And people are, I mean, as we were saying earlier, people are going to say, oh, hang on, wait, I didn't think trans women and women meant that actually now my daughter is not made the running team, track, this is America, right? The
Does
track
not a
team.
scholarship. I mean,
and they will not get a scholarship to go to university. So it's certainly going to do something. And I'm, you know, good, because people are going to have to face up to it, and people are going to have to come down on one side or the other, because it's going to be in their faces.
Yeah,
I mean, I just want to say it absolutely is worth writing your representatives, both on the federal level, if you're in the United States, write to who's representing you in Congress. Try to ask them, maybe they're not going to vote against certain bills, but you can ask them to just please not sign on as a sponsor, because once they sign on as a sponsor, there's no backtracking from that. Like, they've made their public opinion super clear, and it's really hard to get them to back down then. But if they just don't sign on as a sponsor, you have this extra wiggle room. But then on the local levels, like, we think that states are going to be some of the like best chances we have at overturning some of these actions. People think that if they, you know, go on their state representative's website and fill out the form, that just goes into a void and nobody reads it. That is not true. These representatives have entire staffs that are dedicated to reading and synthesizing their correspondences. And this is important to know, because if they get a certain number of like hits on keywords, they have these tools that determine what the keywords are that are coming into their offices. And if they get a ton of hits on these keywords, then that is going to make it into the report that goes to that representative's desk the next morning that says, we got a bunch of comments about women's sports. Why is that? Maybe we should look into it. So it does make a difference. Don't feel like your voice won't be heard. Like, maybe one letter doesn't make a difference, but thousands do. And we're not going to have thousands if nobody does it. So you all need to do it. Be proactive.
I think
yes,
that's
and that one, of course, is also something that you can do, and people don't know. So that is private. That is not sort of standing up in public and saying, this is what I believe. You can actually do something without people attacking you for that. And I think that's a good point to make.
Yes, one thing you notice is that whenever there is a gender critical crowdfunder, it does extremely well very quickly. In fact, Crowd Justice shut down Alison Phillips. Is it Phillips, Helen? Alison Phillips? I always forget her second name. It's Phipps or Phillips? Anyway, Alison's, because she's taking Stonewall to court because of what they did to her, and they shut down her fundraiser. I mean, luckily it made the initial target, but I've still never seen that for anything else, you know. Yeah. But it just goes to show that the people are out there, they're listening, they're paying attention, and when they can help safely, they will, you know. So
this is not a minority opinion. I think that's really important to constantly hammer. We are not a fringe group of feminists. We are not people on an extreme side. I mean, Wolf did polling in October at the peak of partisanship in America. And what we found is that across political ideologies and affiliations, the majority of Americans do not support rules that would allow men in women's prisons, men in boys and women and girls sports, harming parents or taking their children away because of these issues. So overall, Americans do not support this. And I imagine polling in other similar countries would find a similar result. Yeah. So this is not an extreme or fringe opinion.
Yeah. We've had the same. You know, you can say, do you support trans rights? And everyone overwhelmingly says yes. But when you spell out what one of those rights are, if you say, you know, undressing in changing room with women and girls, people are like, oh no, hang on. I know. I mean, I didn't mean that.
And that's why you had to go, Helen, because you were pointing that out and they didn't like it, you know. Artie, every time you sit back in your chair, you look like a tiny Artie Morty. Do it now. Just sit right back and I'll show you. There you go. Listen, it's coming up to 50 minutes, so we should perhaps wrap it up. But can I just say, first of all, thank you so much for coming on. And I think I speak for all of us when I say it's so reassuring to have you out there. I've been watching your recent videos, and the advice you're giving is really inspiring and reassuring. And we you know, just please keep it up. And anything we can do to help, let us know. And Yeah.
Totally agree with that. It's been really heartening.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really
Today's nice. I've enjoyed it very much. It's really
Thank you so much.
Yeah, me too.
Really
And same to all of you.
Good.
Yeah, I've been watching literally all 4 of you for longer than you knew I existed, but for a while back. So,
well, that's great. Well, that's great. Well, I think our numbers are going to grow and grow, and soon we'll look like one of the end of the Brady Bunch credits where they're all multiplied by thousands around the screen. Anyway, I better close off there. Hang around. We'll just say goodbye, but we'll say goodbye to the audience first. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next week at our usual time of 4 p.m.
And don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out Sasha and MK's channel as well. We'll put the links in the linky place. Yeah.
Yes. Brilliant. All righty. Bye-bye. See you next week, everyone.
Bye.